So, here's the thing, I never thought I'd be that woman. You know, the one who smiles through gritted teeth while her sister makes subtle jabs at Thanksgiving. The one who lets it slide because she's family, and that's just how she is. I used to think I was smarter than that. My name's Lana, I'm 33, and until recently, I thought my life was going okay. Married for 6 years to a good man named Mark, no kids yet but trying. A job I liked, a condo we were slowly renovating, and a dog who still hasn't figured out that shoes aren't shoe toys. And then there's my sister, Callie. Callie is, well. Imagine if a Disney villain and a Pilates instructor had a baby and then gave it a psychology degree. That's Callie. Growing up, she was always the pretty one. The dramatic one. She didn't mean it like that one. I was the dependable one, the smart one, the one who helped her out of messes. Classic older sibling bait and switch. So when she called me one afternoon, crying about how she was being emotionally manipulated by her then boyfriend and needed a place to crash for just a few weeks, I didn't even think twice. Mark and I had a guest room, we had space, and more importantly, I had a sense of duty that hadn't yet been kicked in the teeth. Of course you can stay, I said. You're my sister. Spoiler alert, she stayed for 9 months. At first, it was fine. Mark was supportive. Callie helped around the house. She made this incredible bolognese one night and even got Mark to admit she was a surprisingly decent cook. They laughed a lot. I mean, we all did. But somewhere around month 3, I noticed little shifts. Subtle things. Mark started asking her opinion on things more than mine. Which backsplash tile looked better? Which Netflix show to start? Once, I came home from work to find them on the couch laughing at some inside joke, his arm draped along the back. When I kissed him hello, he barely registered it. I told myself I was imagining things. That I was being paranoid. That it was normal, 2 people spending time together were bound to get close. And then came the night that cracked it all open. It was a Friday. I had worked late, thanks to a surprise audit, glamorous life of public health admin, and when I walked in the door, something smelled off. Like perfume and candle wax and tension. The living room lights were dimmed. A bottle of red wine was open on the table. And Mark was sitting across from Callie, shirt slightly unbuttoned, glass in hand. They both froze when they saw me. Oh, Callie said, standing up a little too quickly. We didn't think you'd be home so early. Mark said nothing. I laughed. Like, actually laughed. Because what else do you do when you realize you're the third wheel in your own marriage? I live here, I said. Surprise. I tried to play it cool. Poured myself a glass, made small talk, and acted like my heart wasn't starting to develop a hairline fracture. Later that night, when I confronted Mark about it, he swore nothing had happened. We were just talking, he said. She needed someone to vent to. She's going through a lot. Oh really? I replied. And I guess it helps to vent with cleavage and candlelight? He looked hurt. Lana, you're being ridiculous. But here's the kicker, I believed him. God help me, I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe my sister wouldn't do that. That my husband couldn't do that. That I wasn't the kind of woman who gets lied to under her own roof. The next morning, Callie made pancakes. Mark complimented her on how fluffy they were. I wanted to shove them down the garbage disposal. It took 2 more months before the truth came out. And when it did, it wasn't with a bang. It wasn't even with a confession. It was a text. From my best friend, Jess. Hey. Please tell me you're not letting Mark and Callie hang out alone all the time. I saw them together at that wine bar on 8th last night. He had his hand on her waist. You weren't with them, right? I stared at my phone so long it locked itself again. Mark was supposed to be working late. Callie said she was going to yoga. They were at a wine bar. Together. And just like that, something inside me turned to ice. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things, though I briefly considered launching Mark's Xbox into traffic. I just decided. If they thought I was the quiet one, the predictable one, the one who'd roll over and cry in my pillow, they had severely underestimated the woman they had betrayed. Because I wasn't going to lose my marriage to my own sister. Not without one hell of a story to tell. You know that moment when your stomach drops and your ears start ringing? That was me, sitting on the couch, phone in hand, staring at Jess's text like it was a plot twist in a movie I didn't sign up for. I must have reread it 10 times. He had his hand on her waist. Like it was no big deal. Like it was his place to touch her. Like they were just two people in a bar, not my husband and my sister pretending not to play house behind my back. But here's the thing, I didn't confront him. Not right away. Instead, I turned into someone I never thought I'd be, a calm, calculating, caffeine-fueled Nancy Drew with a data plan and zero trust. Step 1, check phone records. I'd never cared before. Mark and I shared a plan. But now? I scrolled back 3 months. Callie's number showed up 87 times. That's almost every single day. Texts. Calls. Late-night FaceTimes when I was asleep in the next room. I even found a 42-minute call that happened on our anniversary, while Mark claimed he was stuck in traffic picking up dinner. Romantic. Step 2, the laptop. Mark's laptop password was still our dog's name, bless his unoriginal little heart. I opened the browser, checked the tabs, the history. Boom. Wine bar menu. Yoga class schedules. Groupon couples massages. Couples. Massages. I stared at the screen, pulse pounding, heart somewhere near my kneecaps. That's when I noticed it, his email was open. Inbox pulled up. And sitting right there, like a glittery landmine, was a Starbucks gift receipt. To Callie, just a little pick-me-up. I'm sorry. Was I in a Nicholas Sparks novel? Who signs an email receipt? I took screenshots. All of it. Stored them in a hidden album on my phone called Recipes because I'm subtle like that. Now, Callie, sweet, manipulative, passive-aggressive Callie, was still walking around the house like she was auditioning for a reality show no one asked for. She wore silk robes, brewed my coffee, left post-it notes that said things like Lana, out of almond milk, hugs and kisses. XOXO? Is this Gossip Girl or just gaslighting? The worst part? She smiled at me like nothing was happening. Like she wasn't sleeping in the guest room and sneaking out after dark. Like she wasn't chipping away at the foundation of my life with manicured hands and mascara that never smudged. And I let her. For a few more days, at least. Because I needed a plan. That's when fate threw me a bone, actually, more like a full steak dinner. Callie left her phone in the kitchen while she showered. I wasn't even trying to snoop, okay, maybe a little, but the lock screen lit up. Mark, tonight? Same place? I miss you. Let me just say, the level of restraint I showed by not immediately blending her phone into a smoothie deserves an award. I didn't open it, I didn't have to. That one message was the final nail in the beautifully curated coffin of my marriage. I sat there, staring at the phone, and something shifted in me. It wasn't heartbreak. It wasn't rage. It was clarity. These two idiots were dumb enough to conduct an affair under my roof, on my Wi-Fi, and using my kitchen counters. Jury's still out on that one, but I have my suspicions. And they thought I'd never figure it out. Oh no, darling. You picked the wrong woman to underestimate. So I did what any emotionally stable and extremely betrayed wife would do. I made dinner. I cooked their favorites, rosemary chicken, roasted garlic potatoes, lemon butter asparagus. I lit candles. I opened the good wine. I even wore the red dress Mark once said was too nice to waste on a Tuesday. And then I waited. They both came down like it was any other evening. Mark complimented the food. Callie asked if it was a special occasion. Oh, I said with a smile. Just felt like celebrating. And I meant it. Because tomorrow? Tomorrow I was going to burn their whole fantasy to the ground. Let me just set the scene for you. Candles glowing, the table beautifully set. Napkins folded like little swans, thank you, YouTube tutorials. Music low and tasteful, some instrumental jazz that says I have my life together even though I very much did not. Mark and Callie sat at the table like two blissfully unaware chickens heading for the slaughterhouse. He had his beer. She had her smug little glass of Pinot. I was smiling like a woman who hadn't just spent 3 days compiling evidence for what would soon be the most emotionally satisfying ambush of my adult life. So, I said, casually scooping potatoes onto my plate, I've been thinking a lot about relationships lately. Trust. Boundaries. Honesty. Callie stiffened just slightly, which told me everything I needed to know. Guilt doesn't hide well, it just tries to look like indigestion. Mark, bless his deluded heart, chuckled and said, "Are we about to have one of your philosophical dinner debates?" "Oh, not at all," I replied sweetly. "No debating tonight. Just sharing." I pulled out my phone. Placed it face up on the table. Opened the photo album labeled recipes. And started scrolling. "Did you know," I said, showing Mark a screenshot, "that you called Callie 87 times in the last 3 months?" He blinked. "What?" "And FaceTimed her 9 times, 2 of those were after midnight." "That's interesting, don't you think?" Callie's wine glass froze midair. She was staring at the screen like it was a ticking bomb. "Lana," she said, suddenly gentle, like she was about to stage her own intervention. "I think you're reading into things." "Oh no, I'm just getting started," I interrupted, flipping to the Starbucks receipt with the XO. "Remember when you said you were stuck in traffic on our anniversary, Mark? You were sending her overpriced lattes and little love notes." His jaw clenched. He reached for his beer like it contained a reset button. And then, my personal favorite, I turned the screen around to show them the message that had lit the match. "Mark speech balloon, tonight? Same place? I miss you." Callie went pale. Like, Victorian-era fainting couch pale. "Is this a prank?" she asked, her voice cracking just a bit. I laughed. "Oh honey, no. The prank was thinking you could have an affair with my husband, in my house, on my sheets, and I wouldn't notice." Mark finally found his voice. "Lana, please, can we talk about this in private?" "Sure," I said, standing up and calmly taking my plate to the sink. "We can talk in private. Just as soon as you move out." His face fell. "Wait, what?" "Oh, I forgot to mention," I said, pulling an envelope from the kitchen drawer. "This is a formal separation notice. I had a lawyer friend draft it. It's not a divorce yet, just enough to give me control over the bank accounts and legal grounds to remove certain guests from my home." I turned to Callie, smiling like a wolf in red lipstick. "That means you, sis. You're kicking me out," she gasped, as though this was the most outrageous part of the evening. "Let's be honest, Callie. You were never a guest. You were a parasite with a Sephora discount." She stood up, suddenly angry. "This is insane. You're being dramatic. Dramatic would be throwing your stuff out the window and setting your car on fire. This is measured." Mark was still trying to process. "You can't just." "I can. And I have. Bank accounts locked. Guest keycards deactivated. And your boss? He's getting a little anonymous packet tomorrow with some very intimate emails printed out. Just in case his company has a no fraternization policy." Callie went full white woman in a Target tantrum. "You wouldn't dare." "Oh, sweetie," I said, picking up her wine and taking a sip, "I already did." For a moment, the kitchen was dead silent. Then Mark did what most men in his position do when they realize they've been outplayed. He got mad. "You're ruining everything," he snapped. I raised an eyebrow. "No, Mark. You ruined everything. I'm just returning the favor, with better presentation." Callie grabbed her purse and stormed out. No apology. No dignity. Just the sound of her heels echoing down the hallway like a funeral march for our sisterhood. Mark followed, but not before turning back to ask, "Is this really how you want to end it?" I thought about it for a second. Then I smiled. "Yeah. I think it's exactly how I want to end it." And with that, I closed the door behind them. The house felt quieter. Cleaner. Like it had finally exhaled. I reheated my potatoes. Poured myself the rest of the wine. And sat down to eat in peace. For the first time in months. So. They were gone. Mark and Callie, out of the house. Out of my dining room. Out of excuses. I thought I'd feel lighter. Empowered. Like a woman in a shampoo commercial, dramatically flipping her hair in slow motion as she steps into her new life. Instead, I felt numb. It's funny how betrayal doesn't feel like a dagger to the heart. It feels like slow acid dripping through your spine. Like you're still waiting to wake up and realize it was all just a really bad dream. Except it wasn't. And the real kicker? My mom called me the next morning to ask what I did to upset Callie. Yes. Callie. Apparently, my lovely sister had beaten me to the narrative, calling our mother in hysterics at 6 a.m., sobbing about how I twisted everything and blew up over nothing and violated her trust. "I just don't understand," Mom said. She sounded devastated. I took a long sip of my coffee, staring at the phone like it might apologize on her behalf. "Devastated?" I said calmly. "That's interesting, considering she's been sleeping with my husband." "Dead." Silence. Then, "Lana, are you sure? I mean, Callie's not that kind of girl." "Oh. Oh, sweet summer mom. Do you want the screenshots?" I asked. "Or should I just forward you the call logs, texts, and hotel bookings?" Her voice went flat. "That won't be necessary." I could hear the gears grinding. My mother, who spent my entire childhood making excuses for Callie's behavior, suddenly faced with a version of reality she couldn't sweetheart her way out of. "Well," she said finally, "maybe you and Mark just weren't a good match after all." Not "I'm sorry." Not "Callie was wrong." Just a neat little emotional sidestep right off the moral cliff. And that's when I knew, I wasn't just divorcing Mark. I was divorcing the whole damn fantasy. The fantasy that my family would have my back. That blood guarantees loyalty. That being the good daughter meant something more than being the most convenient emotional doormat. I hung up politely. Then not so politely blocked her for a week. Maybe two. That night, Jess came over with 2 bottles of wine, a charcuterie board that looked like it had been curated by a minor deity, and a playlist called Bad B** TCH Energy, Volume 1. "You're officially in post-apocalyptic wife territory," she said, handing me a glass. "Welcome. We have snacks." We sat on the floor, surrounded by cheese and candles and the quiet comfort of someone who doesn't need to ask, "Are you okay?" because they already know you're not, but also know you will be. And somewhere between the Brie and the Beyoncé, I realized something important. This wasn't just about Mark and Callie. It was about me. All these years I'd been the quiet fixer. The let-it-go girl. The keep-the-peace girl. I smoothed things over. Bit my tongue. Smiled through gritted teeth. But you know what you get when you keep smoothing things over for everyone else? A surface so polished no one sees you anymore. Well, consider this my reintroduction. The next day, I booked an appointment with a divorce attorney. Her name was Margot. She wore red lipstick, had a voice like a courtroom mic drop, and didn't blink when I told her my sister was the mistress. "Oh, you'd be surprised," she said, flipping through her intake form. "It's always the ones with joint Pinterest boards." We started the paperwork. I signed things. Made copies. Changed passwords. Closed joint accounts. By Friday, I had taken Mark's name off everything, bank accounts, credit cards, and yes, even Netflix. Enjoy the ads, traitor. I thought I was done. But oh, my dear, sweet reader, the universe wasn't finished with me yet. Because on Sunday night, I got a message. From Callie's ex. Yup. Turns out she hadn't just betrayed me. She'd been playing both sides of her breakup, too. And the bomb he dropped? Let's just say, someone in this story is pregnant. And it sure as hell isn't me. So. There I was. Sunday night, half watching a documentary about volcanoes erupting, ironically therapeutic, when my phone buzzed with a name I didn't recognize. Liam. The message was short. Just 3 lines. "Hey. I think we need to talk. It's about Callie. And possibly, your husband." I blinked. Then blinked again. Because Liam just so happened to be Callie's ex, the one she broke up with, allegedly due to emotional misalignment. Translation, she got bored. I stared at my phone like it owed me a backstory. We'd met Liam a couple of times at family holidays before he got the boot. Seemed decent. Quiet. He brought good wine and once helped my dad fix a leaky sink while Mark and Callie supervised, read, flirted like teenagers. I hesitated for 3 seconds, then typed, "What about them?" And friends, I wish I could say I was surprised by what he said next. But nope. This story? Already in the soap opera section of Reddit. Might as well lean in. Liam replied, "Callie told me she's pregnant." Okay. That got my attention. She says it's mine. But the math isn't mateing. She told me she was single the entire time. When did you and Mark separate? Oh boy. I called him. Screw texting. He answered on the second ring, voice wary, like he already knew he was opening Pandora's inbox. "Look," he said, before I even got a word out. "I'm not trying to stir things up. I just need the truth." I gave him the truth. That she'd been living with me while secretly seeing Mark. That I'd kicked them both out less than 2 weeks ago. That I had texts and screenshots and a red dress that will forever haunt them both. There was a long pause on the other end. Then Liam said, "Well, that explains the mood swings." I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. And then came the kicker, she's asking me to co-sign a lease with her. "Excuse me? She wants you to, what, play house?" I said. "Does she think she's starring in a Hallmark movie called Oops, Wrong Baby Daddy?" He sighed. I thought I could trust her. But now I'm wondering, should I ask for a paternity test? I didn't hesitate. "Absolutely. If only so you don't accidentally co-parent with my ex-husband." He groaned. She said the timing was fuzzy. Yeah. So was her moral compass. We ended the call with a tentative plan. If this baby was Mark's, I needed to know. If it was Liam's, he deserved clarity. Either way, Callie was spinning stories, and the truth was long overdue for a guest appearance. I didn't hear from him again for a few days. But then? Then. Family dinner. Yep, that family dinner. The monthly obligation where we pretend we like each other over dry chicken and polite resentment. I hadn't planned to go. But after the baby revelation, I RSVP'd with a smile and a mental list of things I hoped would explode. And explode, they did. Picture this, everyone seated. My parents, Callie, Mark, because of course they still invited him, and me. Liam shows up 10 minutes late, looking calm, collected, and just slightly dangerous. Callie blinks. "Liam? What are you doing here?" He smiles. "Just thought I'd join the fam. Big things happening, right?" Mark shifts in his chair. My mom glances at me. I sip my wine like it's an Oscar-nominated performance. Then Liam stands up. "I'd like to make a toast," he says, holding his glass high. "To clarity. And DNA tests. May the truth set us all free." Dead silence. Callie gapes at him. Mark chokes on his water. My dad mutters something about how this is why we stopped having wine at the table. Liam sits down. Smooth. Serene. I wanted to give him a standing ovation. Callie's voice rose about 3 octaves. "This is completely inappropriate." Liam turned to her, voice calm. "So is cheating. But here we are." And then, like the climax of a well-timed movie, he pulled out the test request form. Folded. Highlighted. With her name already filled in. "This isn't about drama," he said. "This is about responsibility. If this child is mine, I'll be there. But if you've been lying? I won't be manipulated into fatherhood just because it's convenient." She sputtered. Flushed red. Looked at Mark. Who looked at me? Because he knew. Oh, he knew exactly what was about to come next. I clinked my glass against Liam's. "To accountability," I said. Callie stood up so fast her chair screeched. "This is harassment," she yelled. "I won't be ambushed by people who are obsessed with ruining my life." "Sweetheart, your life came pre-ruined. We're just rearranging the rubble." She stormed out, Mark trailing behind her, because apparently his spine was on backorder. The rest of us stayed. My mother dabbed at her forehead with a napkin like she was about to faint. My father finally reached for the wine. "Liam?" Calm as ever. "You did good," I told him. He smiled. "No one gets away with this stuff forever." And just like that, the tide turned. 3 days. That's how long it took to get the results back. I wasn't even the one waiting on them technically, but you better believe I cleared my calendar for the moment Liam hit send. He texted me at 8:42 a.m. on a Wednesday like it was nothing. "Got the results. Not mine." 3 words. Not mine. Reader, I stared at that message like it had been etched into stone and dropped from a mountain. It wasn't Liam's baby. Which meant Mark. My ex-husband. The man who once said he wasn't sure he wanted kids. The man who said we weren't ready. Who told me, gently but firmly, that maybe we should wait another year. He got my sister pregnant. I sat there on my couch, in my pajamas, holding that phone like it was a detonator. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Instead, I started laughing, quiet at first, then louder. Hysterically. The kind of laugh that has nowhere to go but up because it's floating in absolute disbelief. Because of course. Of course he gave her the one thing he refused to give me. Let me rewind for a second. When I was 31, I brought up starting a family. Not in a pressure-why way, just like, hey, if we're thinking about it, maybe we should, think about it. Mark freaked. He gave a whole speech about finances and timing and we should be more stable first, like we weren't 2 years into a marriage and financially fine. At the time, I assumed he was just scared. Now I realized he wasn't scared. He just didn't want to have kids with me. And Callie? She gets knocked up before the ink on their betrayal even dries. Naturally. But wait, there's more. Because Liam wasn't just sending me test results. He'd apparently had a conversation with Callie the night before. And he recorded it. You heard me. He recorded it. Now before you get visions of some CSI sting operation, it was nothing fancy. Just a phone left on the table during a very telling little coffee date. He forwarded the audio to me. And reader, it was juicy. I popped in my earbuds, pressed play, and was greeted by Callie's voice, breathy, trembling, completely devoid of accountability. I didn't plan this, Liam. It just happened. Mark was there. You weren't. He listened. Oh, honey. He listened because he was trying to unzip your problems. Then she dropped this little gem, Mark scared. He doesn't know how to tell Lana. To which Liam replied, bless this man's sarcastic soul, you mean tell her that he cheated on her with her own sister and got her pregnant after years of dodging fatherhood? Yeah, I imagine that'd be a tough chat. Mic dropped. And then came the piece de resistance. Callie's whisper, she'll find out eventually. I just hope she won't hate me forever. Too late, babe. I didn't hate her, though, not in the way she probably expected. No, hating her would give her power. Instead, I felt something colder. Heavier. Something that looked an awful lot like pity. Because here's the thing about stealing someone's husband, you still end up with a man who cheats. Anyway. I knew what I had to do next. My lawyer, Margot, Queen Margot, as I now call her, had been urging me to consider pursuing an infidelity clause in our prenup. Yes, we had one. And no, Mark never thought to read the fine print because he was sure we'd never need it. Bless his heart. Turns out? Infidelity equals financial penalties. And Callie's pregnancy? That was the legal equivalent of handing me a loaded slingshot pointed straight at Mark's wallet. So we filed. With evidence. Receipts. Call logs. The pregnancy confirmation Liam got from Callie's own mouth. All neatly packaged and ready to deliver to Mark's attorney. He was served the next day. And boy, oh boy, he called me. First time I'd heard his voice since the dinner of doom. Lana, he said, his voice tight, like he was being strangled by consequences. Can we please talk? Sure, I said cheerfully. Talk to Margot. She loves these kinds of conversations. You don't have to do this, he said. I raised my eyebrow at the phone. Do what, Mark? Enforce the contract you signed? Hold you accountable for the choices you made? He paused. You're being cruel. No, I said quietly. I'm being done. Click. It felt good. Not satisfying like revenge, but empowering. Like I'd finally finished a puzzle I didn't even realize I was building, one betrayal at a time. But the best part? Wasn't the financial win. It wasn't the legal leverage or even watching Callie flail in the wreckage of her fake fairy tale. It was what came next. Because 1 week later, someone showed up at my door. And let's just say, it wasn't who I expected. It was a Saturday. The kind of quiet morning where the world feels still, like it's taking a breath before something happens. I was in leggings, an oversized hoodie, no bra, living my best divorced and dangerous life, sipping lukewarm coffee and scrolling through Zillow listings I couldn't afford yet. Then came the knock. 3 quick taps. Not the Amazon guy. Not my neighbor, she texts first. No, this knock had weight. I pulled the door open, ready to unleash my signature, "Can I help you?" look, and froze. Standing on my doorstep, looking about as nervous as a priest in a drag bar, was Mark's mom. Yup. My former mother-in-law. Janet. I hadn't seen her since the early fallout, back when I was still trying to hold the marriage together with duct tape and positive affirmations. She'd called once. I hadn't answered. Now here she was. In person. Holding a Tupperware container and looking like she'd aged 10 years and 3 months. "Hi, Lana," she said softly. "Can I come in?" "Listen. You know I wanted to slam the door. Dramatically. Soap opera style. But curiosity? That little gremlin had me by the hair. So I let her in. She handed me the Tupperware like it was a peace treaty. Pumpkin bread. You used to like it. I set it on the counter. Still do. So what's this? An apology tour? She sat down, exhaled like she'd been holding her breath since Christmas, and looked me dead in the eyes. I had no idea. That gave me pause. About the affair? She nodded. About any of it. Callie. The pregnancy. Everything. I crossed my arms. Your son's been cheating on me with my sister and planning to be a dad after years of telling me we weren't ready, and you just found out? She looked me dead in the face. Mark lied to me too. Apparently, he'd told his family we were taking time apart. Said it was mutual. Played the whole situation like two grown-ups just growing in different directions. Classic Mark. Making betrayal sound like a business pivot. She found out the truth when Callie showed up at her house, with a baby bump and a "hope you'll still treat me like family" smile. I felt like I'd been punched in the face, she said. I told her to leave. I told Mark he was a coward. I blinked. Not because I didn't believe her, but because, for the first time in years, I actually saw it. Shame. She wasn't just embarrassed. She was devastated. My son broke his vows, she whispered. And your sister betrayed her own blood. And somehow, you're the one who lost everything. I nodded. Sounds about right. Then she looked at me with the kind of sincerity you don't fake, not even on a guilt trip. I know I can't undo what happened. But I want you to know something, Lana. You were the best thing that ever happened to Mark. And he didn't just lose a wife, he lost the only person who ever made him a better man. Whoa. That hit me harder than I expected. Because as much as I'd wanted to believe I was done needing validation, there was something deeply satisfying about hearing it, from his mother, no less. She stood to leave. If you ever need anything, help with the house, someone to talk to, I'm here. For you. Not him. And then she hugged me. Tight. Real. The kind of hug you give someone after a funeral. And in a way, I guess it was one. She left. I stood in the doorway, holding pumpkin bread and a strange, warm ache in my chest. That evening, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. I heard my mom came by. I didn't ask her to. But I'm glad she did. I never meant for things to end this way. It was Mark. I didn't reply. But I did eat the pumpkin bread. And yes, it was still amazing. Let me remind you, up until this point, my own parents had been doing what they do best, avoiding conflict like it's contagious. When I first told them about Mark and Callie, their response wasn't horror. It was, well, maybe they didn't mean for it to happen. Oh, okay. So Callie accidentally fell onto my husband. Got it. They've always been keep the peace kind of people. They use phrases like "don't make a scene" and "family is everything," especially when they want me to take the high road while Callie ziplines through the gutters. So imagine my surprise when I got a text from my mother on a random Thursday that simply read, "Can you come over tonight? We need to talk." All of us. All of us was doing a lot of heavy lifting there, but I knew what it meant. Callie was going to be there. I stared at the message for a good 3 minutes before I texted back, "Is this an ambush or an intervention?" No reply. So naturally, I went. Not because I wanted to reconcile. I went because I knew something was up. And frankly, I was curious to see how much of the house would still be standing after I was done. When I arrived, Callie was already there. Pregnant belly on display. Innocent face in full force. She was dressed like she was auditioning for a role called Repentant Sister Who Just Wants to Talk. She smiled. Lana. I did not smile back. Callie. My dad cleared his throat like a nervous middle manager. Thought it would be good to get everything out in the open. Everything, I said flatly. You mean the betrayal, the pregnancy, the fact that no one in this room thought to defend me? My mom held up her hands like I was about to set the couch on fire. We're not taking sides. I tilted my head. That's funny, because it sure felt like you picked one the second you invited my cheating sister to Thanksgiving without telling me. Callie jumped in. I didn't know they'd invite me. I just showed up and, save it. I snapped. You've been rehearsing this little redemption arc since the stick turned pink. There was a pause. And then, for the first time in years, my father raised his voice. That's enough. Now that made the room go silent. I know you're hurt, he said. But this bitterness, it's eating you alive. I blinked. Bitterness? Oh, no. Oh no no no. You think this is bitterness? This is called clarity, Dad. This is what it looks like when someone finally realizes that her family has spent her entire life coddling the child who caused the damage, and shaming the one who had to sweep it up. Callie looked away. My mom started crying. And me? I felt free. Because I had nothing left to lose. You want to talk about family? I said, standing. Then let's talk about what family isn't. Family isn't letting one daughter destroy the other's marriage and calling it a mistake. Family isn't expecting the victim to stay quiet so the holidays stay comfortable. Family isn't asking for forgiveness without ever offering accountability. Then I looked directly at Callie. And it definitely isn't someone who can't even tell her own son's future cousins why Aunt Lana doesn't come around anymore. Callie whispered, I'm sorry. For a split second, I almost believed her. But then she added, I just didn't know how to stop. And there it was. The ultimate excuse, helplessness. As if betrayal was just a ride she got strapped into and couldn't get off. I walked to the door. And right before I left, I turned to all of them and said, I don't hate you. I don't even hate her. But I love myself more now. And that means I don't have room for people who watched me drown and only asked if the water was cold. Then I left. No dramatic slamming. No tears. Just the sound of my heels clicking across the porch like punctuation at the end of a chapter. And that was the night I realized, sometimes, you don't just leave your ex. You leave the people who helped break you, even if they share your last name. It started with a letter. A real one. Paper. Stamp. My name handwritten in neat, familiar lettering. No return address, but I didn't need one. I recognized that handwriting like muscle memory. Mark. I almost tossed it. My inner circle, Reed, Jess, wine, and common sense, would have strongly advised against reading anything that might mess with my hard-earned peace. But curiosity? She's still the loudest voice in the room. So I opened it. The letter was 3 pages. Neatly folded. No perfume, no dramatic tear stains. Just Mark. Being Mark. Let me summarize, because you deserve the CliffsNotes version, he apologized. In detail. Without deflection. Said he'd been half a man the last few months, and that the moment I walked away, he realized I'd been the only adult in our entire relationship. Admitted that the baby changed everything, but not in the way he expected. Said it made him see Callie clearly for the first time. Spoiler, he didn't like the view. Said they're not together anymore. That she's moved back in with our parents, irony, anyone, and that co-parenting is already a battlefield he's losing. He didn't ask for forgiveness. Just said, you were the best version of my life. And I ruined it. I just wanted you to know I see that now. I hope you found something better than what we had, because you deserve it. I folded the letter. Set it on the table. Then I sat there for a full hour, just feeling everything. Not pain. Not even anger. Just this weird, bittersweet ache. Like nostalgia and peace had a baby, and it was named Closure. Because here's the thing, I didn't need him to hurt. I didn't want revenge anymore. I just wanted space from the version of me that stayed too long. The woman who accepted crumbs and called it dinner. And now? Now she was gone. I was someone else entirely. That night, I poured a glass of wine, curled up on the couch, and started looking through some of my old photos. Not the couple ones. Not the curated happy life ones. The ones of me. Backpacking through Portugal. Sitting on a rooftop with Jess after my first promotion. laughing mid-bite at a food truck in Austin. You know what I saw? A woman who had always been whole. Even when she thought she was just part of something. I hadn't found someone better than what Mark and I had. I'd become someone better. But fate wasn't quite finished with me yet. Because 2 weeks later, I ran into someone I hadn't seen in a long time. His name was Theo. He worked in the same building as me years ago. We had always exchanged casual office banter, but the timing never lined up. I was married. He was relocating. Life happened. But that afternoon, I walked into my favorite coffee shop, hoodie and all, and there he was. Sitting by the window with a book and a cappuccino. He looked up. Our eyes met. And I kid you not, his face broke into a smile like he'd been waiting. Lana, he said, standing up. My stomach flipped. Theo? We hugged. That awkward, slightly too long hug where two people are both surprised and weirdly not surprised at all. You look amazing, he said. You remember me? I teased. Always did. We sat. We talked. About jobs, about life, about how time passes and everything changes except the things that actually matter. And just like that, something flickered. No sparks. No fireworks. Just a quiet warmth. Like a soft light turning on in a room I'd sealed off a long time ago. I wasn't falling. Not yet. But I wasn't afraid to open the door anymore. And that? That felt like the real victory. So, here's how this ends. Not with me setting fire to someone's clothes on the lawn, though let's be honest, I absolutely thought about it. Not with Callie sobbing into a throw pillow or Mark groveling in a rainstorm. But with me, standing in my own kitchen, writing my letter. Because after reading Mark's words, and after seeing that spark of something real in Theo's eyes, I realized I'd never actually said goodbye. Not to them. Not to that version of my life. And definitely not to the girl I used to be, the one who clung to loyalty like a life raft, even when it was dragging her under. So I sat down, pulled out a pen, and wrote 3 short notes. To Callie, you broke something between us I don't think you even understood. And I'm not writing this to reopen the wound, I'm writing it to close it. You took more than my marriage. You took memories and holidays and the illusion that we were ever really close. But here's the thing, I forgive you. Not because you deserve it. But because I do. I'm done carrying your shame like it's my burden. You can raise your child and build your life however you want, but it won't be on the ashes of mine anymore. I wish you clarity. And growth. And maybe someday, the courage to say I'm sorry without needing something in return. But until then, stay away from me. We're not sisters anymore. Not in the way that matters. Lana to Mark, I got your letter. Thank you for writing it. And for not asking anything from me. I want you to know, I meant my vows. I loved you with everything I had. And for a long time I believed that meant sacrificing parts of myself to keep our life intact. But now I see it. Real love doesn't feel like shrinking. It feels like safety. Growth. A place you can exhale in, not one you have to hold your breath inside. So thank you, for showing me what it isn't. I don't hate you. But I don't miss you either. Lana and to me, girl. Look at you. You survived a betrayal that would have knocked out lesser women with a bottle of wine and a $4.99 Hallmark card. You faced the fire and walked straight through it, heels intact. You let yourself feel it all. Rage. Grief. Embarrassment. The weird quiet that comes after the storm. And you didn't break. Not really. You rearranged. You remembered who you were before you became someone's wife, someone's sister, someone's safety net. And now? Now you're free. Go buy the shoes. Take the trip. Kiss the guy if you want. But whatever you do, never again forget your own worth. You are the story. Lana, I mailed the first 2. Kept the third on my fridge. And then? I started living. No dramatic rebirth, no overnight transformation. Just small, quiet revolutions. I took myself out to dinner and didn't hide behind a phone. I joined a pottery class even though I'm terrible at it. I said yes when Theo invited me to a rooftop jazz night and laughed when he spilled wine on my sweater. And the best part? No more pretending. No more shrinking. Just me. Unapologetically, inconveniently, wonderfully me. Because here's the real plot twist, the most powerful thing you can do after someone breaks your heart. Refuse to stay broken. So if you're out there, reading this, wondering if you should stay, wondering if you'll survive, wondering if you'll ever stop replaying the moment it all cracked, you will. And when you do, you'll find yourself again. Maybe for the first time. And she'll be standing there, smiling. Holding the pen. Ready to write her next chapter. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories. And before you go, check out the video on your screen. It's another heartfelt story you won't want to miss.